All right, let's go. Man, it's exciting to be back. Welcome, Lions fans. Welcome, CFL fans, to the BC Lions Den Podcast 2.0. 2.0, because this was just an audio podcast before, and now everything's evolved into this video podcasting world. We did take a couple years off. I was burnt out from doing the show. Just wanted to be a fan for a while, and we're going to try and keep this so that we remain fans and don't take this too seriously. But guys, it's great to be back. I'm nervous. I'm excited. My creative juices are flowing, and I want to introduce the new co-host of the show, Mr. Cole McGarvey. Cole, welcome, and let's hear a little bit about yourself, brother.
Ryan, thanks first and foremost. I really appreciate you for having me on tonight and for the rest of hopefully a few years as we build this 2.0 version of the podcast. But really excited to be here, Brian. I think when you kind of made the tweet, kind of looking for somewhat of a co-host, it piqued my interest right away. So wanted to reach out, link up with you, get your kind of thoughts on the idea, and obviously our kind of thoughts aligned, and we're able to make this happen. So I'm looking forward to it. Number one, just coming off a wonderful holiday season, and kind of had a little bit of the Monday blues going back to work this morning, and then actually my lunch break, I kind of put together some of the a little bit of notes, and then kind of started to work on the thumbnail, and really kind of shook those Monday blues off, and really started to look forward to the show, really started to look forward to kind of the vision that we have with the show going forward, and kind of just like you mentioned, um, similar to kind of what we're doing over on the Canadian Football Fanatics. Obviously, kind of the definition of fanatics is, a diehard fan, right? So kind of what we're doing over there, wanting to do that over here, and specifically with the BC Lions. So really looking forward to it, and I appreciate you for taking me up on that offer.
Well, I'm happy to have you. I've been watching your stuff for a while, and I respect your football opinions. I think you're well thought out, and your opinions are well thought out, and I appreciate you joining the show. So just to get into kind of why we stopped before and why we're coming back, it was just burnout. The whole time we did the podcast, for one thing, the Lions were absolutely horrible, and it started to become a labor of unlove versus a labor of love. So just too much work. Life was hectic. We're going to do things a lot different this time. There's no script. This is a live show. Whatever comes out of our mouths, it's coming out of our mouths, and it's going to stay on the podcast. So we'll try and restrict our blunders and bloopers to as much as we can. But if they happen, they happen. But podcasting has changed a lot since we first did the show. We first started back in 2013, I think it was, and so it was just an audio podcast. Nobody was doing these video podcasts. Maybe a few people were, but it was very new, the video podcasting thing. And I wanted to do something this time around that was as professional as we could make it. I spent a lot of time learning how to make videos. You saw the intro videos. We came in here. I just learned how to do that like 2 days ago. So this kind of stuff is all new to me. It's got my creative juices flowing again. We're going to have some fun with this, and I'm just really looking forward to it. What's the vision of the show? Mainly, it's the same vision as before, and we just want to add BC Lions and CFL coverage into the market, into the Vancouver market, into the Canadian football fan podcast market, and because we feel it's lacking. The post game shows we get here, the Lions aren't really on a sports radio show here. It's about a half an hour, 25 minutes tops after a game. Maybe we can fill some of that void after road games. Of course, home games will be at the game, so doing post game shows will be a little tougher. But I'm thinking about doing some post game shows, get fans in here asking questions, commenting on the games, things like that. We're still gonna have guests, probably Lions players, personnel, media members from around the league like we did in the past. It's just going to be a totally different format, way more chill. This little segment here is called the water cooler, where we just come in and shoot the shit. Have a good discussion about the Lions, the CFL, different topics. Yeah, some of this stuff is going to be new, some of it's going to be the same as it was before, but we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Mainly, I want this show to be interactive. With this platform, you guys have the opportunity to come in here and contribute to the show. We can even bring you on the show if you want to come on. You got a camera, you got a mic. We can bring you on the show and hear your thoughts live. So those are the kind of things I want this show to evolve into. And it's a show by fans for fans. That's how I kind of look at it. And we want you guys to be involved. So if you have any ideas for segments that you guys want to see, by all means, shoot us a suggestion in the chat. We can certainly consider it. We can talk about it offline. But yeah, that's kind of what the vision is for the show, and I'm really looking forward to it. So Cole, maybe you can.
Yeah, I can maybe just take the second to maybe just introduce myself a little bit, Brian, to all maybe the familiar viewers that you have. So as I kind of alluded to there previously with my platform, the Canadian Football Fanatics, we actually started that probably about going on 3 years. Actually, it'll be in February, and basically the Canadian Football Fanatics. So we like to cover all things Canadian football, kind of similar to Brian. Feel like there's a huge void in not only the coverage in our market here in BC, but in the CFL community as well. So I guess to take you back before we get into CFF a little bit, I grew up in Nanaimo, BC. It's about a 90-minute ferry ride from where Brian is in Vancouver. Still in BC though, so grew up a Lions fan. Grew up always remembering going over to games with my dad and being able to go to the 7-Eleven, get games and a hot dog and whatnot. The two for I believe it was like $50 deal. And then a big thing was the Lions play with the pros camp. And I remember those as a youngster and kind of going to those, being able to interact with some of your favorite players, the G. Simons, the Paris Jacksons of the world and stuff like that. And then kind of slowly started to, I guess, drift away from the CFL and the BC Lions. As you mentioned, Brian, actually was a graduate of NDSS secondary in 2015. So that was kind of some of the harder years for the Lions. I also played in the CGFL, in the Canadian Junior Football League, with the Vancouver Island Raiders. And on Saturdays, that's our game day, right? So a lot of the time, unfortunately, just during that period, we kind of fell out of love with the BC Lions. But then COVID happened and the world shut down, and was kind of looking around for stuff to do during the downtime and looking for stuff to fix my boredom, I guess you could say. And got back kind of into that love of the CFL and the BC Lions, and really started to get back into things, wanting the league to come back to life, and hoping it wouldn't die because of kind of some of my younger memories as a kid. So obviously with that, for Lions fans that maybe remember a little bit about that, was kind of the Mike Riley days. And obviously for those that maybe remember a little bit more, we returned, and the I believe it was our first game back was in Saskatchewan. We had the whole Mike Riley ordeal with his elbow. Would he play? Would he not play? I believe a young Nathan Rourke at the time ends up getting thrusted into the starting lineup and making his debut as a professional quarterback, and really kind of just coming onto the scene there in Saskatchewan. If anybody kind of has an idea of the CFL landscape, understanding the hornet's nest that he walked into, and really had a pretty good showing as a youngster. I know there was a pick six early that kind of maybe would have flustered along a lot of young quarterbacks, but he really bounced back, really kind of didn't phase in the face of pressure, and really intrigued me to really buy back into the CFL and the Lions specifically, of like, wow, we have this young talented kid. We just drafted him. Let's see where he can kind of take us into the future. And obviously fast forward a few years, an NFL stint later, and we kind of have the face of not only the franchise, the face of the CFL. So really it's kind of lit my fire back into wanting to cover the CFL, why we started the platform, as I mentioned, with the Canadian Football Fanatics, as well as kind of having the ties with the Canadian Junior Football League. This past year, we partnered or collaborated with the BC Football Conference, and we're able to kind of cover their games, as well as we were the color commentator for all 5 of the Raiders home games this season. So you'll be able to look forward to some of that as well, guys. And I really encourage people that are BC Lions fans to really consume some of that coverage, whether it's CJFL as a whole or BCFC, as we are very well know of, the Javon Toys of the world, the Adam Konars, the Sean Whites, the Kieran Passants, Riley Pickett's, you name it, CJFL alums that can kind of show that they belong in the CFL. So I really encourage people to really consume the BCFC specifically, because I'm obviously more in touch with that, but kind of like I mentioned about the covering all assets of Canadian football, we even have a little bit of U Sports, not so much during the season because we only have so many hours in the day, but more so, as I mentioned to you, kind of Brian off camera, hoping to get to the CFL Combine this upcoming spring, and be able to kind of cover some things there, and be able to put some content out there. So that's just a little bit about me, Brian, kind of to fill your viewers in.
Awesome. Vancouver Island Raiders, of course, the alma mater of one Andrew Harris.
Yes, indeed.
It's where he was kind of discovered by the BC Lions and brought into the fold there. Yeah, so we've got a few questions coming in here about asking questions. If you guys have any questions, by all means, you can post them in the chat. If we're on a topic that's kind of like not relevant to your question, we'll get to your question later, and we will have a question segment at the end of the show, usually for viewer questions and things like that. But if you have a question about something that we're talking about actively, by all means, put something in the chat, and we'll get your question up. Thanks for everybody for your warm welcome back, and yeah, so let's start talking.
Sorry, Brian,
about
before I cut you off though, we got a 50 burger in the chat. We're hoping for 20,
yeah
30. I
we
love
were
to see the
50 people
support
right
so
now.
far.
Yeah, this is great. Very encouraging. Gets the juices flowing a little more than they already are. So thanks for everybody for stopping in. If you have any comments, like I said, put them in the chat. We'll get to them eventually. So let's kind of start while you're okay. Well, we'll get this one out of the way here.
Yeah, we can take Tim.
With so much of the schedule being dictated by the World Cup, thoughts from Lions fans on their home schedule and other home games. Well, I'll tell you, I think the BC Lions did a lot better job than the Toronto Argonauts did. I think the Argos kind of phoned it in, and I think their fans are getting the shaft this year. At least Lions fans get to travel to a nice summer place in Kelowna, BC, which is not too far from Vancouver. So, I've already booked my hotel. We'll be there for the week. We'll be there for both games. So Lions fans are still within the province of BC. I think it's, it is the British Columbia, the Lions. It's not the Vancouver Lions. So to spread things around the province a little bit, I think is good in this case. I don't want to see regular season games spread around the province too much as a season ticket holder. We pay for our season tickets. We expect to see games in BC Place or wherever the Lions are playing. But as a one-of every couple of years, I think it's great. I think it grows the game through the province. Kelowna's not that far away. Kamloops isn't that far away. Victoria's a ferry ride away. So those types of places where you can take the Lions and grow the game, I think is good. As far as the schedule goes, I don't think the Lions have it too bad. I would have liked to seen maybe an Eastern opponent in Kelowna, just because the West games draw better at BC Place. But I think that's asking a lot. I think the games are going to sell out anyway, so I don't think it would have been a matter of being able to sell it out because it's not a Western opponent. I think the games would have sold out regardless. So Calgary, Edmonton, I guess a lot of people from Alberta can make that trip and see those games. So I understand why they picked the Western teams. I would have preferred maybe the Eastern teams, and I would have preferred a game with the Argonauts. I mean, why not bring the Argonauts out here? They're also being displaced. We could have called it the World Cup Bowl or something like that. I think the league could have done a little better on it, but I think the Lions, full kudos to Amar Doman once again. He's going to build basically a brand new stadium there, a temporary stadium with stands to increase the capacity from anywhere between 18 to 20,000. I think it only holds 7,000. I'm not sure
Yeah.
about the Apple Bowl. So he's going to be investing some money there. Unlike the Argos, who took the cash bag and went to Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, I'm not sure how much money they're going to make off those gates. But those are my thoughts on it. Anyway, I think the Lions did well by the fans, and I think their schedule is doable.
Yeah, I think talking about the World Cup specifically, it definitely lessens the blow that the fact that the Lions put so much effort, and obviously shout out to Amar Doman for being such a wonderful owner the last few years. He put effort into making sure that the game stayed in BC, unlike, as you mentioned, some of the other teams around the CFL that chose not to. Having a little bit of experience, played up in the Apple Bowl. I played up in the Apple Bowl 3 times during my BCFC career. I'm very interested to see how they're going to be able to transform the stadium into what they say about the 18 to 20,000 capacity. One, I was actually I kind of joked with Coach Travis Miller of the Okanagan Sun during their playoff run to the Canadian Bowl this year about, other than Caledonia Park, which is the Vancouver Island Raiders home field, the Apple Bowl is my next favorite probably venue to play in, arguably in BC. I think it's a wonderful atmosphere, kind of on the hillside a little bit there, and with the grandstands that kind of bring that atmosphere, as well as the natural grass field. But there's just not a lot of space, so I'm curious to see. I know they mentioned kind of in the pressers up in Kelowna that it might be kind of similar to like the Empire days, where the stands are a little bit more on top of you rather than kind of go backwards. As I mentioned, it's pretty tight in that track, but I would not put it past the BC Lions and Amar Doman to make sure that they get it done. And looking forward to it. I'm not too sure if I'm going to make it up there for both, like yourself, Brian, but I'm definitely going to make it up there for one, and really looking forward to seeing how the atmosphere pans out. Talking about the schedule, I think also with a heavy road schedule to start, it kind of means that we're going to be, a lot of home cooking to end things. I believe it's like 5 home games after Labor Day or something like that, which will be nice, right? With, playoff seeding or whatever may be happening in terms of a playoff race, which we're hoping for. Or maybe hopefully there's no playoff race in our case. But hopefully you're playing those games at home in BC Place. The elements are, out of, there's no raining and there's no in the prairies or whatnot. So I like that aspect. I think from a CFL perspective, the only bummer that I thought was kind of unfortunate was the fact that there's only 3 games to start the season, which I think is a little bit of a bummer. But I know with World Cup and whatnot and venues being taken up, it's kind of they're at the mercy of the World Cup right now. So I believe the Lions do open up. Is it in Saskatchewan, which will be a pretty good way to open up the season for us, and hopefully we'll be able to get a little early season revenge.
I found it interesting that the Lions had a bye in the first week. And then I was kind of like excited about that because, then you're going to Saskatchewan, they don't have any game tape on it. Then I realized Saskatchewan's got a bye too.
Yeah.
So like, okay,
And
well,
see,
here we go.
forgive me for a second, because I felt, and like I said, I understand with venues and whatnot, but like from a marketing standpoint, would you not want like, and you could go Saskatchewan, Montreal, but would you not want Saskatchewan versus the MOP, Nathan Rourke, who puts butts in seats? I feel like to open up the season, or at least in week 1. But I think that's probably a conversation for another day. But kind of, I don't mind it, to be honest, Brian.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too about the schedule is when you're playing a lot of games on the road at the beginning of the season, it can really help with your team bonding. I think Nathan Rourke has already mentioned that it's going to be a great opportunity for these guys to spend some time together, do everything together to start the season, and that can really form a strong team bond. So I think that's working in their favor. It could work in their favor anyway. Another question here: will you have players on as guests? Well, we did before, and we certainly intend to this time around as well. Obviously, there's some more relationships to be rebuilt since I took 2 years off, but I don't think that'll be a problem. But we're going to start slowly, establish ourselves first, make sure that we're serious about this, and I don't see why we wouldn't be. But we'll try and get some players on. We've already talked about maybe getting Ryan Rigmaidon on to talk about free agency and the draft and some of those things on an upcoming episode here. So yeah, I think we'll definitely have some players on at some point. We might as well take a few more questions here. Hello, Blake. How are you? Tracy, I respect and admire Amar Doman's passion for this team. I felt his response to Tommy Neal's TD in the West Final lowered his stock a little bit, in my opinion. Do you think that knowing what he knows now is his responses on social media be different? My response to that is he is a passionate owner. And when he saw that video, from the angle that he saw it, it looked like the football touched the ground. I know that it was reviewed. I know that it wasn't the football. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't think it was. From the replays I've seen, it was the right call. But I don't think you can fault Amar Doman for his passion. Does he regret making the tweet? Possibly. Maybe not. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it. But that's my kind of take on it. I don't think anybody needs to get overly upset about it. The call was made. Nothing was going to change. You move on. You go to the Grey Cup. You win the Grey Cup. Whatever Amar Doman said is doesn't matter. It's water under the bridge, and I think it's just passion.
Yeah, I love the word that you used there, Brian, of passion, right? Passionate owner, felt like his team was right there, which we were, right? If we're being honest, right? A play away,
One first down.
one first down, right? I don't have to maybe. It's still a little bit too early to maybe talk about it, but
Yeah.
like we both said, right? Just passion. He felt like his team deserved to win, which they did. And unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, and it's a game of inches, as we know. And one screenshot might look like a football, one might look like his elbow. So it's unfortunate, but like you said, I think it just comes down to being a passionate owner.
Yeah. And the Riders were full value for the win. I mean, they drove the field. Lions just needed a stop. And on the series before that, if they got one first down, the game was over. So that's the way football goes, man. And we all know no lead is safe in the CFL. So congrats to the Riders, and we'll see what happens this year. Only like 50 days too early. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. So let's move on. We'll talk a little bit about the Lions now. It's been already a pretty productive season for Ryan Rigmaiden. He's got some key guys signed in free agency. Let's switch things up a little bit here and head into some free agency talk. All right, so we've got the Lions free agent list here up on the screen. And right at the top, you see a pretty big name in Dejon Allen. No word on what they're going to do here, but we're not going to go through all of these names, but some of the key ones we're kind of going to pick out here and think about whether or not they're a must sign, a maybe sign, or a guy that could probably not be resigned in the interest of salary cap space. Dejon Allen, for me, is one that he has to be totally healthy for the BC Lions to bring him back. He had a big contract number last year. He was a big free agent signing last year, and I don't think what did he play 2-3 games last year, Cole?
I believe 4 games, and he was actually the trade with Toronto, if we all remember correctly. He was the trade that they sent over a second round pick and Ryder Vargas. So
Oh,
kind of
that's right.
unfortunate that's the way things played out. Was that kind of understood that there was a little bit of an injury history coming off of his I think it was the 2023 season where he won the most outstanding offensive lineman in the CFL. Kind of had a little bit of a down year, I guess you could call it, in 24. Ends up getting traded to the Lions, and then like you mentioned there, Brian, it's unfortunate that Chris Slugger played a majority of the season at right tackle for us, and kind of I feel like puts a little bit of a haze, I guess, into things in terms of priority. For me, when you look at the offensive line, I would look to the other side of the offensive line, and Jarrell Broxton for me is by far
Must.
priority. Yeah, by far priority number one, and I would even kind of, as much as I would love Dejon Allen, and I think Dejon Allen would be up towards the top of my priority list. You look around the offense, you look around the defense, and there's a lot of stuff still to get done. So, maybe he's the odd man left out. And could you possibly look towards, a guy like Chris Slugger, who's going to be much cheaper? He has that chemistry with the offense already. He is a free agent though already, so you have to make sure that you get that piece of business done beforehand. But for my money, for sure, all the cliches, but it starts up front for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You do like to have those 2 bookend tackles.
Yeah.
So if they don't sign Dejon Allen and he's not healthy, hopefully they can find somebody in free agency. That's kind of a position where you don't want to take a chance, especially with a young quarterback like Nathan Rourke. You want to keep him healthy in the pocket for as long as you can. It's a long season, and to have two stalwart tackles like that is pretty key in the Canadian Football League. So he's going to have to come back at a reduced cost, I would think, just based on his injury situation from last year and the last couple of years. But we'll see if they bring him back or not. The next guy I want to talk about is Broxton. Obviously, like you said, he's a must sign. A lot of people felt he should be the West representative for offensive lineman of the year last year. No issue with Yoshi Hardrick taking it. The guy's a beast. But Jarrell Broxton was a beast for the Lions last year, and very durable. Only missed, I think, a couple games last year. But yeah, especially if you're not bringing in Dejon Allen, you got to get Jarrell Broxton signed and try and find somebody on the other side.
Yeah, that's the guy. Darrell Broxton's the guy you give big money to, and you're able to, back the Brinks trick up, so to say, for him and whatever his, price tag is at. I would definitely be okay with spending that. When looking at the other side with Dejon Allen, I don't think the Lions would get that luxury of being able to have both of them again next season. I would think that if Chris Slugger understands that Dejon Allen's coming back, he understands his starting spot is kind of, or his spot on the team, I guess I should say, is as a reserve tackle once again. I would think his competitive side maybe wants to test the market, see if he can go, find a starting position somewhere else around the league. I think he's a starting caliber player, so I would think that's kind of, you kind of have to pick your hand there, whether you want to maybe risk it with a Dejon Allen and his injury history, or maybe go with the guy that maybe doesn't have quite as big of a ceiling, but has maybe a similar floor with Chris Slugger. I also would like to maybe throw in along the offensive line. When you look at the offensive line, obviously Michael Couture just re-signed. Corey Woodruff, I believe, is under contract, as well as George Una, or Anna Una, I should say. You pretty much look at, if you can lock down those tackles, you're running back essentially the same offensive line again, as you said, Brian, with the continuity, as well as league low in sacks given up this past season. I believe it was 22. I would think that you're able to hit the ground running come training camp, and really feeling good about that group once again after, maybe 2-3 years ago, not maybe 2-3 years ago, we were definitely calling for that on a lot of our, shows over at the Fanatics, of like, man, we got to upgrade this offensive line and find a way. I guess dating back to even the Mike Riley days of some of those 50 sack seasons that we were seeing, and wanting to see the Lions be able to improve that. But I think the other thing that fans have to realize as well is it's just a tough thing to do in professional football in general. That, all teams, not only in the CFL, in the NFL, are all looking for starting caliber offensive linemen to play at a good level, especially with just some of the freaks that are coming out playing defensive line. But I would also look at some glue guys along the offensive line. Chris Slugger's not only one, but Andrew Pearson, I think, up front, is a guy that maybe could be important too, whether injuries happen, and he's a guy that can play along all five positions, whether it's center, both guard spots, or potentially filling at tackle. Of course, we know jumbo tight end, or a secret weapon in the passing game as well. I would love to see him get brought back, and I think it'll be a pretty cost-friendly deal as well. So
Yeah, I'm not sure Pearson's a tackle guy. I think he's kind of plug
no,
and play along the interior of the line, and he did a great job filling in for Michael Couture last year when Couture was hurt. So, but I agree. If they can promote from within and give Schluger that job, and he can handle that job, then maybe the Allen money gets freed up to spend elsewhere. And continuity is a great thing too for the offensive line, like you mentioned. If those guys are familiar with each other, they kind of have a brotherhood. And you look at the success that Winnipeg had over the years, and how they just kept that offensive line so consistent over the years, and developed great chemistry and great success with that offensive line. So I'm sure the Lions are looking to do that, especially with Buck Pearson fold coming over from Winnipeg, and seeing how that all worked out for the Bombers. Next guy on the list is one that's going to be talked about by a lot of Lions fans, and I think that's James Butler. I think that's a tough one. I don't know if they can bring Butler back, not because he can't do the job. He's going to be looking for a raise. You've got Xander Horvath waiting in the wings, who proved he was more than capable last year. Is he an everyday starter? I'm not sure. But I kind of have always felt like running back is the one position where you can go out south of the border and find 5 or 6 guys to bring into camp, and one of them usually is serviceable. You're not going to see a Brady Oliveira here. He signed back in Winnipeg. Mills is re-signed in Calgary. So some of those top end free agents out there, I don't think Ouellette's leaving Saskatchewan, and those guys are going to cost you big money that you probably don't have to spend on a running back. So I think James Butler might be a little bit tough to get a new contract, but as of right now, I've kind of got him on my expendable list, and I hate to say it because I love the guy, but it's just, where you're trying to find money somewhere, Butler might be the guy that has to be shaved off.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, Brian, with everything you said there. And this will be my last one, Brian. I'm going to leave you for 2 seconds to grab my charger after this one, but I have to get in this conversation because I think it's a juicy one for not only Lions fans, but I think CFL fans in general that are curious to see if JB is going to hit the open market. In our kind of last video, I guess you could say, on the CFF platform, we did our BC Lions offseason primer to kind of get folks ready. And that was one of our segments of like who's priority and kind of touched on that really specifically. Like JB, I think, is the guy that's just unfortunately too far down the pecking order. We'll talk about it in a little bit. Keon Hatcher just got paid, deservingly so, got rewarded for everything that he's done. We already have 3 of the 7 top, I believe, non-quarterbacks for hard money next season. And Keon Hatcher, I believe, is up to, I think it's 310 K in hard money next season. Justin McInnes already got paid this previous offseason, as well as not Nathan Rourke, excuse me. I guess Matthew Betts on the defensive side is another highly played guy. So you only have so much money to go around. Dejon Allen is going to get paid, I would hope, by the BC Lions. That makes less money to go around. And as you said, if you're able to maybe look at a American free agent running back, a la a Xander Horvath, who we saw this past season, come in, really hit the ground running in limited action, limited touches, where we're kind of calling for it, or I guess in our show we were calling for it during the West final preview of like, hey, if JB's not 100% throughout the playoffs, like, are we able to get Xander Horvath, 5 to 6 touches a game? And it's unfortunate that you kind of have to walk that balance as an offensive player caller in Buck Pierce of like, well, can we take our stalwart workhorse running back out to give this guy some looks, and maybe kind of you kind of have to juggle that in your mind. So I feel like that is kind of maybe the right path for the BC Lions to do. As you said, not for a lack of, admiration for James Butler. Love how he plays. I love the style of running back that he is in this offense, that he's not only able to run between the tackles, run outside the tackles, but also able to be that valuable check down kind of avenue or asset to Nathan Rourke's game of, if he's in trouble or he feels comfortable in checking the ball down. I think we kind of struggle with that as we saw the tail end of last season of William Stanback not being able to be as reliable in that check down option. We saw it against Saskatchewan with the A.J. Allen pick six. I believe that was in 24. But I do feel like, unfortunately for James Butler, he'll be playing in a different uniform in 2026, and we'll be seeing who's going to be. I also would remind folks about it, a guy like maybe Jordan Tyrell, who was on the practice roster for most of the season. There was kind of rumblings of maybe the Lions possibly looking at a cheaper option during training camp last season. So who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully maybe the cap's going up and that could help things. But I feel like, unfortunately for James Butler, it's just going to be too far down the pecking order.
Yeah. Next guy on the list is kind of is another receiver, Canadian receiver, Aiden Eberhart. You'd love to see him retained. I'm not sure if Cole's just dipping out to grab his charger. I'm not sure if Aiden Eberhart is going to be retained. Obviously, he's going to be looking for a raise. He deserves a raise. But when you look at the Lions receiving core right now, with McInnes and Hatcher getting the big dollars, I think you can find room for Eberhart. But again, you're going to have to find money from somewhere else. So I would love to see it. I love the guy. I think he's a great player. He really started to come and do his own last year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Aiden Eberhart. But I would love to see him come back into the fold. Made some real clutch catches last year down the stretch, and really started to come into his own. So hopefully we can do that and get him signed. Just talking about Eberhart, Cole, I don't know if you want to chime in on him.
Yeah, I will for sure. So I think Aiden's an interesting one for me personally, where you kind of look similar to the offensive line room. You look at the receiver room. Keon Hatcher just got re-signed. He'll be back. Justin McInnes under contract. He'll be back. Javon Catoy under contract. He'll be back. You essentially got your top 3 receivers right there. Although, Javon Couture is maybe kind of that Swiss Army knife, that guy that you can kind of flex in through that receiver 3 through 5 role. You look at a guy like Stanley Berryhill, who is under contract as well, can kind of fill that deep threat. I feel like he was really developing a pretty good chemistry with Nathan Rourke throughout their first season together as well. You look at a guy like Aiden Eberhard, who I think deservingly deserves to maybe get another look at being brought back to this receiving core. I think he not only is a super reliable guy, but I think he's very crafty and underrated in terms of being a underrated guy that can kind of get behind coverage at times, can have a little bit of wiggle to his game. And then I feel like there's still another, level or two for him to get to into this offense. And I've said it about Trevon Toy numerous times throughout the years. It's just unfortunate there's only one ball to go around, and kind of you're at the mercy of, the play, the read, Nathan, and kind of the receivers, as well as we saw this past season. I believe it was four of our five receivers that were over, I think it was 400 yards receiving or 500 yards receiving, where the ball is truly really getting spread around a lot. It might have been actually more than 400 or 500 yards. It might have been 700 yards that I'm trying to remember back to our off-season primer video. But I would like to see Aiden get brought back at a pretty reasonable price, and I think that would be able to get done. Excuse me, especially with the relationship that Aiden has in this locker room, only team that he's been a part of in his CFL career. But I'm curious to see what happens with the business side of things. Maybe they, with money being tight, are they able to offer Aiden as much as he's maybe worth? And maybe they have to go in a different direction and look for someone that's maybe a little bit more cheaper, as well as a special teams kind of role that comes into play of can he, provide an asset to us on special teams? So I'm curious to see what happens. I would personally like to see us run it back at receiver with the five guys that we had last season. There was some Canadian guys that I really had my eye on in terms of maybe making it a trio in the receiving core, but they really got re-signed and kind of scooped up pretty early there in the offseason. So for my money, looking at the receivers that are out there on the market, kind of not wanting to test it too much, and then really rely on Ryan Rigmain's ability to scout and specifically down south, across the border in some of those American free agents that'll be coming up.
Yeah, I think Bob Medill brought up a good point too. The relationship that Nathan Rourke has with these guys, and not saying that Nathan Rourke couldn't work with any receiver that the Lions brought in. I mean, obviously, there's just always chemistry between quarterbacks and receivers. But when you look at the clutch catches that Eberhardt made down the stretch last year, and he was kind of a go-to guy for Rourke in a lot of tough situations. That's a good point. Rourke may say, "Look, I need this guy back. I want this guy back." The other thing to consider is too, when we're talking about all these free agents, is how many of these guys will take less to come back and be part of something here in BC, because there is something brewing here in BC. If this team can stay together, if this team can add a piece here and there, it could be a force for a good 5 years in this league with Nathan Rourke, assuming he stays healthy and all the rest of the things that have to happen for teams to have success. But you look at the Bombers, guys take a little bit less to stay in that situation. You look at the Riders this year, guys are taking a little bit less to try and repeat. You hope that same mentality is in the Lions locker room. Like, we've got something special here. Let's try and keep the band together. Let's grow this and see what we can do with it. And so that kind of comes into consideration too here.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Not only do they understand the chemistry aspect of it, but they understand of how special Nathan Rourke is as a player. And I think you hear it of how much they really admire him, and kind of look up to him. I know a couple years ago, I believe it was the Nate Brady nickname that was going around. I believe that was 23, the Burnham last season, of how much they understand this guy is truly special and going to be able to put us in these opportunities, similar to a guy like, or I guess, sorry, not similar to a guy, but I would, I guess, think about it a little bit more with a guy like Eberhard, of like him being a possibility. But could it be a possibility with a guy like James Butler too, that maybe thinks, man, is the grass really greener on the other side? Like, like you look in the West, Dietrich Mills is going back to Calgary, Brady Oliveira back to Winnipeg, AJ likely back to Sask, Justin Rankin likely back in Edmonton, or excuse me, Rankin back in Edmonton. Where are those spots going to come from James Butler? Maybe he understands, hey, I'm going to stay in BC at a cheaper price tag, be a part of something special, and be able to come back. But I do feel like that's a little bit more unlikely than the Aiden Eberhard situation, because JB does definitely deserve to get what he deserves.
There's also the fact that the cap is going up. We don't know how much
Yeah.
yet, but there's going to be a little bit more money to spend and distribute that way as well. Who else should we talk about here?
Well,
Great
one
to
thing,
see.
Brian, I would throw in for I believe it's 89 people that we have tuning in right now. But if anybody is
Thank
on
you.
YouTube, once again, we appreciate everybody for tuning in. But make sure you guys are subscribing to the Lions Den YouTube
Yes,
channel. When you
please.
guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every time Brian and I go live or upload any sort of video on the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. And you guys will get notified as well every time Brian and I go live. So make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. It would be awesome as we track down maybe 100. Let's maybe try to speak it into existence here tonight, Brian.
9 away. Yeah, we were hoping for 20 or 30. We've got 91 people in here right now, so that's awesome. So going down the list here, where are we?
Defense, I guess now? Do we chat about the
Whatever
defense at
hurt.
all?
Yeah, let's go Edwards Cooper because he was a starter last year. Um, you want to keep the secondary together as much as you can. I don't know if he's a guy that is a must, though. Now, Robert Carter Jr. is getting some NFL looks.
Yeah.
No surprise after the season he had. Whether he's going to get offered a contract, I don't know. I really hope he's back because I love watching him play. I love his lack of size, but his definite ability to get up and get the ball and his speed, not only on kick returns but interceptions. He's a player and definitely should have been in the running for Rookie of the Year last year. But Jalen Edwards Cooper, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah. So for me, the secondary is a very interesting conversation when looking at, and I might maybe, depending on how the crowd is tonight, I don't know if this is going to maybe rub people the wrong way, but I had this conversation on the offseason primer about kind of the secondary specifically, and maybe being 1 year early opposed to 1 year too late is kind of the saying that I've adopted over the past about year of maybe getting off of some of these veterans on the team, Jalen Edwards Cooper being one of them. But unfortunately, and I hate to say it, but you know, two guys like a Gary Peters and TJ Lee, and maybe giving the reins over to guys like Ronald Kent, Robert Carter Jr. Robert Carter Jr., as you mentioned, does have the NFL looks, and I would imagine will continue to have that NFL interest. I think the unfortunate side for him is that he's, I think, on the wrong side of 5'10", 5'9", so not the biggest player by any means. He really does well in the CFL at his size. And I think that's where he's going to be able to find a good home, but really lean into and give those guys the keys in the secondary that, hey, Kent, Carter, you guys are going to be the future of our secondary in the boundary where TJ Lee and Gary Peters locked down for so many years. For, you know, I kind of had the saying of like for a decade almost, we didn't have to look who was in that short side of the field. It was number one, it was number six for all those years. And they did so many good things for the organization and for the program representing for all those through all those hard years. And I hate that we weren't able to reward them with a great cup. But I think unfortunately for them, it's even more of a blow that, you know, all that TJ Lee was able to give us this season of coming in off the couch. He really gives us a spark to the defensive side of the ball. That's where you really start to see things change this past season. But for me, really power up those younger guys. And then when you look at the other side of the field, that, you know, possibly a opening at both corner and halfback, let's see what shakes out with the safety position first. And I think the BC Lions will try to find every way to have both Boyu and Finley on the field next season in some capacity. I would think Boyu maybe gets his starting safety spot back, or vice versa. Maybe Jackson Finley goes to the field side and plays that halfback spot. They've both had that familiarity in the past, more specifically in their university career, but both played, you know, outside corner in the slot at that halfback spot as well as safety. So I think they're going to be able to be flexible there. And I would imagine maybe look at maybe like bringing in a American first year player up into the CFL to maybe lock down that field corner spot. But you also have a guy like Deontay Williams that if he's not starting at your nickel or your Sam linebacker spot, Deontay can play in that halfback position at times as well. He also backed up Roland Milligan in his MODP season in 2024. So I'm really hoping that the Lions are going to empower some of those younger guys, get the Finleys, get the Boyus on the field, make sure those guys are really going to be able to get those reps early on, and then up across from them, hopefully it's you know, guys like Kent and Carter as well. And if guys like Peters and Lee would be into coming back and not maybe guaranteed a starting spot to, you know, battle it out, I'm all for that as well. I think Gary Peters you know, played a majority of the season pretty banged up, so I don't know if we got maybe a true indication of if that was maybe the last legs of GP. I still think there is a little bit of football left in him, but I don't know if we can maybe rely on that for a full 18 game, 21 week season. Hopefully, if we're hoping to get to a Grey Cup next season. So I'm really curious to see if some of those veterans are brought back just for the sake of maybe a voice in the locker room, especially with all three of those guys, Jalen Edwards-Cooper as well, being familiar with the scheme.
Well, the return of TJ Lee really had an impact last year. That's kind of when things started turning around for the Lions, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know. I don't know if you can bring both those guys back. I would lean towards TJ Lee myself. I think Gary Peters had a rough year last year, and like you said, he was banged up, had the knee injury that was never really right. I don't know if that's ever going to get right. I don't know. Maybe in the off season if he had surgery. I haven't heard anything. But he's over 30 now. Great player, Hall of Famer for sure. But at this point, you've kind of got to start looking younger, getting more consistent out there. And he did get beat, and we just hit 100 viewers, Cole. We just hit 100 viewers. Thank you, everybody, for showing up on our soft launch tonight. We really appreciate it. So, yeah, I don't know if they can bring both those guys back. I would be fine with one of them coming back. But, again, TJ Lee did indicate that he wanted to play football this year. So, hopefully, they'll at least bring him back to camp and see what he can do. But he is unsigned at this time. Jeremiah Masoli, I don't see him coming back. I don't think, you get enough out of that to bring him back. So the Lions, will be looking for a quarterback. One name that I've kind of had on the tip of my tongue, and a lot of people are going to say, "Are you nuts?" But it's Trey Ford.
Trey
Ford. It makes sense on so many levels. He's Canadian, so you have a Canadian backup for Rourke. He has a great tutor in Buck Pierce to help him get what he wasn't getting in Edmonton. He's got a great quarterback to learn behind in Nathan Rourke, to see his work ethic, to see how he prepares for every game and does all the right things. I really think that Trey Ford might be a great addition for the Lions, just on those facts alone.
So something that's pretty funny is that this was brought up to me probably mid-season, whenever the switch happened with Fajardo starting in Edmonton for Trey Ford. We do a weekly show during the season over on the 13th Man Football YouTube channel. Head over there, guys, and subscribe if you guys are looking for more CFL content as well. And Shane, the host of the weekly show, Ottawa Red Blacks fan, mentioned about the possibility, as at the time as well, we just came off the Masoli experience and the two games that we saw there of, would you be open to Trey Ford? And I kind of shut things down right away just due to the simple fact of maybe like the drama and just the unnecessary questions that would come. But taking a step back and kind of hindsight is always 2020. Maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was super into the idea. Maybe I shouldn't say super into it, but had talked myself into the idea a little bit more when doing a little bit of research for free agency and looking into kind of some of the CFL free agent quarterbacks that have CFL experience. Didn't really like or enjoy the list of some of the options that are kind of on the table right now that the Lions are going to be looking for a backup quarterback. I would imagine that Jeremiah Masoli, if he doesn't retire, will not be brought back. The Lions are going to have to find somebody to come in and back up Nathan Rourke, as you mentioned, not only for the ratio side of things, but if he does come in, you don't have to worry about any sort of things with roster-wise with Rourke if he were to go down. And as you mentioned, he would be able to come in, learn. Hopefully, I would hope that Trey is able to mature enough to understand that this opportunity is much better for him than maybe some of the other landing spots for him where he would go be a backup and maybe potentially rot away. Hopefully, this is one where he sees that he can kind of come here, thrive, get better, and maybe have another opportunity down the road. My next thought was that how much the BC Lions kind of struggled with the short yardage side of things, short yardage execution this year when Nathan Rourke wasn't operating that unit. And obviously that's such a weapon, and I love that we're able to utilize that weapon from time to time. But I feel like it also is you're kind of walking that fine line of risking any sort of bodies rolling up on Nathan or any sort of weird injuries happening in the pile. We saw it a few years ago with Boliev and Mitchell of weird things happening, and just you don't want to play with something like that. Could Trey Ford kind of come in and really buy into, hey, you're the short yardage quarterback. We're going to give you some packages here. We're going to come in, not only run the ball, but you're going to throw the ball a little bit for us as well. If that isn't the case, I hope the Lions do go American at that backup quarterback position and maybe bring in somebody new that Ryan remains able to look at. Elsewhere, I was looking at the BC Lions neg list I believe they have 12 quarterbacks on their neg list. I think it's the second highest position outside of receiver. That's at 14. So possibly maybe one of those guys that maybe would be coming in and maybe competing at a training camp. To me, the other guy that I would look at would be maybe a Logan Bonner, formerly of the Calgary Stampeders, just solely for that short yardage package. Bring him in. Tommy Stevens obviously returns to Saskatchewan, so he's off the board. Strebler coming off the injury, I would imagine he's kind of I would imagine contemplating retirement. So if you were to lock down, somebody like a not Tommy Stevens, excuse me, Logan Bonner, bring an American backup quarterback to maybe compete for that position with somebody else. Maybe that's the plan. If not, I would be all into going after Trey Ford, pitching him that idea of, hey, come be a BC Lion, come get better, come learn behind Nathan Rourke and Buck Pearson, and really get yourself another look somewhere else in the future.
Yeah, I don't think he should be looking at it as an opportunity where he's not going to start. I think he should be looking at it as an opportunity to come here and get better, and maybe sign as a free agent a year or two down the road with another team where he does have a starter spot. Because I think the opportunity to learn under Buck Pierce and under Nathan Rourke is huge. And people talk about his attitude and this and that, but I really think that he got the shaft in Edmonton. He got thrown into a position where he wasn't ready. Chris Jones had no confidence in him, didn't want to develop him, just kind of cast him aside. I just don't feel like you can throw everything on Trey Ford there. I think they didn't handle that situation very well, in my opinion. So I'd be willing to take a chance on him. I think he fits well into the system of having the Canadian backup and all the rest of it. You don't have to adjust your right ratio if work goes down. He can come right in and you can just business as usual. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Trey Ford. And I think the Chase Bryce experiment is over. I'm not real high on him. I haven't really enjoyed watching him play that much. He hasn't had a lot of success. A lot of people want to see him get a chance, but obviously he's never going to get a chance behind Nathan. But I don't think I think it's time to move on from that situation.
I think if they didn't have the faith or trust in him over Jeremiah Masoli after the kind of the sample
Exactly.
size that we saw, I think that's
Exactly.
kind of all you need to see as well as they kind of went back and forth in the preseason, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was Masoli that got the start down in Langford, if I'm not mistaken, or vice versa. And then Bryce was the one that got the start on the road, and then kind of you gave the opportunity there for Bryce to really take it and run, and I feel like he just never did, as well as Masoli really never did as well. So
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, well, great to see Keon Hatcher resign. Obviously, that's a huge get. His chemistry with Nathan is great. Led the lead in receiving last year. No reason why he can't do it again if he stays healthy. Adam Konar has been extended. Ben Hladek's an interesting one as well. Kind of took a step back last year, I want to say, but still a serviceable player. I just don't know if there's going to be room for him on the linebacking core. His nationality helps a little bit.
I also think him being a BC boy could possibly play into things where he's a big
Hometown
family guy
disappointment.
from everything
Yeah.
I've heard, went to UBC as well, so maybe that comes into play. Now, obviously, you mentioned Keon Hatcher, the news that we just got as well about a week or two ago of, Darnell Sankey coming into play. I would imagine that means your two starting linebackers next year, Sankey and Alway. Is Hladek okay with coming back to BC, but it's going to be in a reserve role and in a special teams role, which he has done in the past. So could be good as well because having a starting caliber player on special teams on your special teams unit could be an asset to you for sure. So one to keep an eye on, but I would imagine if he's wanting to look to start that BC will not be the place for him.
Yeah. Adam Konar comes back largely in a special teams role.
Yep.
Kyle Nelson, long snapper. Maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. I'm not sure what his plans are. He's getting a little long in the tooth now. Maybe he'll retire, or maybe
Yeah.
long snapper is not that physical of a position, so maybe he's got a few more years left in him at the right price.
Well, I'm
And
interested to see what they do because they have Riley Pickett on the roster as well, who has long
mhm,
snapping experience, can kind of play other positions as well. So if they want to move off a guy like Kyle Nelson, they have a guy in the pipeline already.
and Pickett was just extended as well. So,
Yes, correct.
um, let's see here. Talked about Gary Peters, Andrew Pearson. I think is probably going to get re-signed.
Yeah.
he's been in the organization for a long time. He's a plug and play kind of guy who can help out in multiple areas. I think he has value to bring back. Maxime Royer.
One guy that I think is pretty high or would be higher on my priority list would be a guy like Jonah Tavai, Brian,
Well,
who I
absolutely.
think who I think quietly had himself a phenomenal season last year. And I think if you weren't a BC Lions fan, you might say, who's Jonah Tavai? But if you tune into Lions games, you're at BC Place for home games, he jumps off the page numerous times throughout games. And for anybody that's maybe played football or understands football, playing in the interior of the defensive line, you're a guy that's really doing a lot of the dirty work, a lot of the ugly stuff that's not showing up on stat sheets, that's not getting noticed by, let's say the TV copy or by, the average fan, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the amount of stuff that guy does for the defense, I think is really underrated greatly. He was also voted a CFLPA All-Star, which I think has the most, I guess, like credence or legitimacy, because it's voted on like for the defensive line, it's voted on by offensive linemen that they vote on the guys that they go against, and vice versa. That the CFLPA receivers all stars, they're voted on by the opposing DBs. You also can't vote for anybody on your team, so it's not cherry picked by your own guy voting for your teammates. So Jonah Tobias is getting recognized by all of his opponents as the best defensive tackle during that 2025 season from this past year. I think we heard about, Levi Bell, Bradley and I last season, how they kind of really unlocked Matthew Betts. I think Jonah Tabai being right beside Matthew Betts as well does a great deal of really taking off that spotlight, taking off that shadow, and talking about the defensive line. When you look at it as well, we talked about the offensive line kind of being able to run things back. You look at Matthew Betts under contract. You look at a guy like Hayden Harris, we just drafted in the second round last season, did his NFL thing. I would imagine you're going to be able to have that ratio flexibility and understand that Matthew Betts is going to be on one side, Hayden Harris will be his backup. On the opposite side, you'll have Levi Bell, you'll have Bradley and your two Americans. And then you look in the interior, you have Dwayne Hendricks under contract. He'll be coming back to play on the inside once again. Hopefully, you're able to bring back a guy like Jonah Tavai, and you're able to kind of maybe fill in the pieces of bringing back some depth pieces, like maybe a Tebow Dubai, I believe I saw was a free agent, and some of those other guys that are going to be some of those rotational pieces. As we know, the Lions really love to rotate some of those guys and be able to play, 4 defensive tackles and be able to keep those guys fresh throughout a game. So Jonah Tavai, supremely underrated and would be high on my priority list to be brought back.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if I'm mistaken or not, but I thought I saw a report that he was getting an NFL tryout somewhere.
Yes, I did see that as well, which will be something to navigate for the BC Lions of how they're able to, are they expecting him to be back? And I would imagine that'll play into what they're able to offer him. So, deserve the NFL look because of the season he had for sure. So, will be interesting to see because there'll be other suitors as well. And as we talked about already, Brian, multiple times, there's only so much money to go around, and could there be, unfortunately, guys that are maybe just a little bit too far down the pecking order.
Yeah. All right, let's skip over Tiuima, and we'll talk about Sean White. Everybody loves Sean White. There's not a person in the league that doesn't love Sean White. I love Sean White. He's a fantastic, consistent kicker. My only concern is
there a butt coming?
There is a butt, and I hate to be that guy, but we are seeing kickers hit 55, 60 yarders on a more regular basis now, not only in the NFL, but the CFL as well. You look at a guy like Castillo in Winnipeg, he can hit from 60, over 60. Sean White just doesn't have that leg. How long do you go with Sean White? When you got a guy like Nathan Rourke, he can get you into Sean White range pretty consistently. Sean is consistent. You're giving up the longer field goals, but I don't know how much longer they can ride with Sean White or how much longer Sean White wants to ride. I mean, he made the comment after the rule changes came out, well, I guess I know when I'm retiring. But I don't know. I don't know if there's nobody waiting in the wings. I don't think there's a robo kicker out there who's going to be kicking 60, 65 yarders for the BC Lions anytime soon. You're going to get a hometown discount with Sean White, no question about it. He's only going to play maybe a year, maybe another 2 years.
Yeah.
I think
1 year deals.
I think you probably bring him back, but I just wanted to get that butt out there. that the Lions are giving up a little bit when it comes to Sean White, but his consistency is certainly a key.
Yeah, so this one is a very tricky conversation.
Mhm.
Um, I think one that you have to maybe try to separate your heart from maybe your head a little bit of, I would love to have Sean White back, and I kinda joked about, as long as Sean White's gonna play, he can have a BC Lions uniform. I think, as you mentioned, the consistency is such a key thing. When, I kind of went back, I was able to pull, some of our notes from the offseason primer, video of, Sean White on the season. As you mentioned, 95% field goal percentage during the season, but you look at some of the other numbers that are a little bit kind of, and when you look at, his average field goal make was 31 yards out, which was last in the CFL, isn't great when you think about, moving the goalpost back another 15 yards, and that lengthens his range as even more. As you mentioned, you kind of joked about it, but also you talked about the, other kickers that are making it from 50, 60 yards. He had no field goals over 50 yards last season. So it's one of those things that you're kind of walking a fine line of giving up range for consistency. He's going to make all his kicks. They're going to go through the uprights. It's going to be Mr. Automatic. But it's unfortunate that next year, is it next year that we're getting ends goalpost move back, or is it 27?
I think it's 27. They're moving the goalposts. I
So
can't. I should have brushed up on what's happening next year and this year or the year after, but I can't remember which
either
one
way,
it is
though,
off the top of my head.
I would imagine it's a thought. Not imagine, it is a thought in his head because, as you said, he made the tweet of, understanding when he needs to retire. Um, they're all going to be 1 year deals from here on out. Sean might even alluded to it on the Arrow Up series, that the Lions were able to film, that it's basically 1 year deals from here on out. He's going to see how he feels after the season. I would think he feels good enough to kick once again in 26, but it's if the Lions want him back, and it's at that kind of, at that cost. He's going to be consistent. All those kicks are going to go through the uprights, but you're going to be able to be at a deficit in terms of getting into range.
All right. So we're at the hour mark now. It was just kind of where we wanted to keep this, but we are going to extend it a little bit if Cole's
Yeah,
okay with that.
I was gonna
We
say
we got
totally cool.
120 people in here right now, so that's fantastic. If you guys got questions, start pumping them in there. Right now, we're just going to switch things up a little bit, and we're going to talk about some New Year's resolutions for the PC Lions. Um, Cole, you got one you want to get us started with?
Yeah, for sure. And we'd love to hear from the chat as well. If anybody has some New Year's resolutions for the BC Lions or even for the CFL in general, we'd love to hear it. As we are, what, 2 days away, 3 days away, I guess I should say, from 2026. And yeah, Brian, I kind of mentioned to you when we were preparing for the show, maybe we could do a fun segment of like the BC Lions New Year's resolution, some things that we would like to see them improve on in 2026. And there's a number of ways I think that we could go. And I'm curious to see actually where you go in terms of maybe what you'd like to see, some improvements.
My
You could
my New Year's
obviously,
resolution for the Lions is a pretty simple one. Not to get behind in the West early in the season. Like win your damn games in the West at the beginning of the season so you're not chasing that home playoff date. Be dominant from the start, not this second half stuff. You have a real opportunity this year to make some hay in the West. You've got to take advantage of it. If you want that Western final in BC place, if you don't want to be going to Regina in November or Winnipeg in November, or even Calgary in November. I mean, Calgary is going to be a force again this year. You've got to make hay in the West, and you've got to win your games in the West, and you got to do those early. They start the season with what, 3 straight West opponents. Um, I'm not sure if there's an Eastern team in between there. I believe it's 3 straight with the West. Um, you've got to do it. You just got to win those games and get ahead of the ball. So that's my New Year's resolution for the Lions. You've got to be better in the West.
yeah, it actually kind of transitions into mine actually beautifully. When you look at, as you said, being able to make sure that those games in the playoffs are being played in BC Place, or at least having that bye and then the West Finals in BC Place. But mine would be going back and forth with like, some of those games, early on in the season. When you look at maybe the loss, I believe it was Saskatchewan early on. I think it was the Masoli versus Jake Mary game where that those games kind of, in the early part of the season where you say, like you kind of shrug it off. Oh, we'll get him next time. We'll get him in week 16. Those are the games that can kind of come back and bite you come the end of the season. If that's where you lost the division, or that's where you missed out in getting another Western Division victory. So every week is super important, while also being important to not ride the roller coaster of a long season. But my New Year's resolution would be for the BC Lions, I guess specifically, but you could also include regular season, but it would be to stiffen up our run defense going forward. And I think when kind of transitioning that into being able to make sure that you're playing at home, what's been the common kind of theme or common denominator in all the Lions losses in the playoffs the last few years? They've all been on the road, and they've all given up big run games. I have the numbers right in front of me here of in all four of the last few four losses that the Lions have been eliminated, they've given up 4.5 yards on average. I guess it'd be 5.5 yards on average. When looking back at 2022, the loss versus Winnipeg, they gave up 31 carries for 173 yards, 5.5 yards per carry. Then in 23 versus Winnipeg as well, they had 27 carries for 121 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. In 24 versus Saskatchewan, they gave up 22 carries for 102 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. And then this past season, 20 carries for 128 yards for 6.4 yards per carry versus Saskatchewan. If you're giving up 4.5 yards per carry on average, you're setting up other teams into second and very manageable situations. When they're able to establish that run game, they're not only, tiring out the defense, they're essentially eliminating and taking off our best weapon, our best player in Nathan Rourke sitting on the sidelines a lot of the time watching drives being marched up and down the field. So for me, it's improving that run game. We already saw a little bit of maybe some pieces being moved around, an addition of Darnell Sankey. Hopefully that'll improve some things. Now you also got to understand that it is a team game, and making sure that his big boys up front and along the defensive line are making sure that he stays clean. They're taking up their blocks. They're doing their assignment. I think Darnell and Mike Alway are a pretty good tandem of linebackers, arguably the best, maybe 1-2 linebackers in the CFL at their best. So for me, I think you have to assure that. As I said earlier, Brady Oliveira re-signed. Dietrich Mills led the CFL in rushing, isn't going anywhere. AJ Ouellette, I would imagine, is going back to Saskatchewan. Justin Rankin had an unbelievable season this past year. Arguably should have been in the running for MOP, carrying the Elks into relevancy outside of I know they made some changes with Fajardo and whatnot, but in the West you're going to see those four running backs regardless, and especially come playoff time. So has to be something that they shore up. It would be something that I would, as I said, with the defensive line. They have Matthew Betts, Bell, Dwayne Hendricks, and I would imagine if they're able to lock up a guy like Jonah Divide, they have that defensive line back. It's about bringing in some of those depth pieces, some of those guys that maybe an early down run stopper, maybe like a similar body type to like a Micah Johnson. Maybe it's like a Jamin Pelly, former Edmonton Eskimo, Toronto Argonaut, a big-bodied interior defensive lineman that's able to, as I said, stuff some lanes, keep your linebackers clean, that sort of thing. So for me, I think the biggest thing, because we have Nathan Rourke on offense, and year one with Buck Pierce and Nathan Rourke, I think looked pretty. They hit the ground running. I have a ton of numbers from our offseason primer that I could go into in terms of what they were able to create. In year two, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're able to do. They talked about it actually to end the season of, Buck Pierce, I think, got to BC in February or March last season, where they've been together this whole offseason. They've been able to meet together. They've been able to, cross ideas or cross, work on some things that, they saw from this past season, implement new things. So I think this offense is going to be able to take care of business. Sean White's going to be Mr. Automatic once again. Can the defense stop the run? Because we also saw that the secondary improve throughout the latter portion of the season and then into the playoffs as well. So like what we have from the secondary, like what we have from the linebackers, defense line, but can we stop the run? I think will go a long way to the Lions' fortunes, bettering their fortunes in 2026. And then when you look at, stopping the run, Brian, if we're able to play in BC plays, I think we're able to maybe dictate things a little bit more, control the football, stuff like that, where we're not playing outdoors in Winnipeg and Saskatchewan in November, and really game plans are to run the rock. So I feel like it's kind of a twofold of not only do we have to stop the run, but we have to make sure that those playoff games are being played at home.
Just touching on the defense, and this guy took a lot of heat last year. Mike Benavides. What are your thoughts on Mike? I know there was some personal things going on with Mike last year that a lot of people don't know about. That said, do you think he comes back? Do you think they look to make changes there? I haven't heard any rumors as such. I would expect he's coming back. What are your thoughts on him as a DC, and if the Lions should be looking for an upgrade there, change things up a little bit, or should they come back with Benavides?
So this is, I feel like I'm repeating myself. This is another interesting conversation for myself as, um, I guess to really rewind things before we get into Mike Benavides. I really thought Ryan Phillips was scapegoated a little bit when he was relieved of his duties. I thought he was kind of
Yeah.
wrongfully um, demoted, I guess is the right word, where he obviously the defensive coordinator tag ends up stepping back into that defensive backs role or secondary coach, I think is what he was labeled. I would have really liked to see them continue to build with Ryan Phillips, a guy that's a BC Lions lifer who's bought into the, bleeds the orange and black and really understands what it means to be a BC Lion. Um, so that's, I guess, first. Mike Benavides, I wasn't the happiest, so I think that's also kind of maybe flawed my judgment a little bit or flawed my criticism of it is I've kind of been hard on him from the start as I didn't really enjoy the signing. I thought it was a little bit of kind of the thing that I've kind of coined, I guess, is the CFL retread of some of these guys that we've seen in these places before, in these roles before. And as Lions fans know, not only as defensive coordinator, but he was head coach for the Lions as well. So we've kind of seen what his philosophies are for teams, what his schemes are for defenses and stuff like that. Um, so wasn't the biggest fan and kind of going in had that bad taste in my mouth already. So I feel like Benavides to me anyways was kind of fighting an uphill battle. Now the season went how it went and really started to, get after him in some of our post game stuff and really did enjoy what was happening. Now the streak was what it was. The Lions go on the 6-game win streak to end the regular season, 7 games including the playoffs, and things did turn around. But I think it was more so of the saying of it's the Jimmies and the Joes versus the X's and the O's, and as you said already earlier, TJ Lee comes in there after Labor Day, or I believe it was before Labor Day actually, and then we get the additions of Levi Bell and Bradley and I post Labor Day, and they make their debuts in that. I believe it was Levi Bell made his debut in the home and home with Ottawa. And then the next week when we played Toronto, I think is when Bradley and Nye made his debut. I think it was more so those guys really igniting the defense. TJ Lee really kind of bringing that leadership, bringing that voice into that locker room, into that unit specifically, as well as if we are being honest, we did talk about moving off TJ Lee, but TJ Lee played pretty serviceably down the stretch. He wasn't a liability to say. Did he give up some plays? Yes. Did he make some plays? Absolutely. So I think considering what we got from him off the couch, that he at what 15 weeks he was or whatever it was 10 weeks he was at home. So um I'm just I'm interested. I think he gets brought back, but I'm interested to see what he's able to maybe look in the mirror this offseason and really, kind of hear from Buck. Hey, what are some things that you think that we can maybe do better in terms of this is a new regime where, Benavides in the past had his own regime, had, Wally's regime. So maybe he can kind of, correlate with Buck and they can kind of improve things on both sides of the ball is kind of my hope. My dream would be for RP to kind of get that responsibility back if you were to move off a guy like Mike Benavides once again.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, the coaching cap conversation comes into play of, you've paid this guy. Can you afford to? Is Mardoman willing to maybe pay a guy that you already, Rick Campbell's, I believe, on the payroll still, I believe, or was this past season to coach in Ottawa. So one thing that's going to have to, kind of be, I guess, thought about behind the scenes before a decision is made. But personally, I don't want to say it's wait and see with Benavides, but I'm more so, I guess, out more so than kind of holding my breath moving forward on Mike Benavides. But I think they have the guys around to elevate that unit.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the criticism was during the end of games last year when they blew leads. Um, wasn't aggressive enough, only rushing 3, sitting back, giving too much cushion. But when you look at the game of football, I mean, that's a pretty common strategy when you have a lead. You're going to give up the short stuff in hopes that your guys can make plays. And look, bottom line in the Saskatchewan game, the Lions didn't make enough plays on that last drive. There was a wide open pass. I can't even remember who it was to, but that was the one that got them down the field and put them in a position to win that game. So, it is what it is. But I have a lot of respect for Mike Benavides. I think he's a really good man. Um, and I know there was a video, the videos that the Lions do after games. They gave Benavides a game ball, and you
Yeah.
could see the respect. He was close to tears in that video. You could see the respect that the players have for Mike Benavides. So there's no question he's a good football man, and he's been around and knows more about football than I'll ever know. So I'm willing to give him another shot if he's coming back. But like you say, I do kind of agree that maybe Ryan Phillips got a bit of a shaft last year. But I think that partly had to do as well with Buck being a rookie head coach, wanting to have that experienced guy that he could bounce things off of in a coordinator role, especially since he was taking over the offensive role. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens this year. Yeah, that was my kind of last comment on the things.
So
Do we
close to 150, Brian. We're almost there, man.
Oh, yes, 146 people in the chat are watching the stream. We are so thankful for you guys coming in here tonight. After a 2-year layoff, it's nice to know that we were missed and you guys appreciate what we're doing here. So this is just the start, folks. We are looking to be a real contributor to the BC Lions market here in Vancouver, in the CFL landscape. We think it's been missing. There's my friend Sheila coming in with the welcome back. We think it's been missing. We're bringing it back. We hope you guys enjoy it. As you can see, the show is very interactive. You guys can come in here anytime and ask us questions live. This is not recorded. So we can even like bring one of you and put you right here. If you got a camera, you got a take, you want to get off your chest, we can send you an invite and join you right into the show. So as Cole mentioned earlier, please head to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BCLionsDen, and give us a subscribe. We really appreciate that. It helps the show out immensely. Facebook.com, BCLionsDen.ca. That's been around forever. If you guys aren't following that, you can give that a follow. Give us a follow on Twitter. Cole, throw your socials out there for your other podcast as well.
Yes,
We'll get something up
this.
here. That was kind of a misstep on my part. We should have something.
Oh, all good, Brian, all good. It's as you mentioned, just the beginning of you and I, which I'm excited. I think things went well tonight too, Brian. With
Here's
you
my
know,
wife. She thinks you're a great host. My wife thinks you're a great co-host.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that, Susan. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Brian. As you said, this is just the beginning. 2026 is not even here, so we're looking forward to hitting the ground once we get into the new year, taking the next few days. Although I have to get back to work in the morning, which is a bit of a bummer. But this really, as I said, re-energized me to get to the new year and really hit the ground running. Then a little bit about my platform, the Canadian Football Fanatics. You guys can find us on Instagram at Canadian Football Fanatics. You guys can find us on Twitter @_CF Fanatics, as well as we are on YouTube as well. And we do a ton of stuff over on YouTube and Instagram. We're trying to get our Twitter game up there as well. But as I said, only have so many hours in the day, only have so many hands to be tweeting and posting stuff out. So follow us over there. We're going to be much more active in the new year, as we just kind of wanted to take our last month of 2025 to kind of take a little bit of a break. Where in 2026, we're going to be uploading once again, getting our podcast series going. So you guys can look forward to some CFL guests as well as BC Lions guests, some similar guests, or some, I guess, familiar guests that we've had in the past. We've had Javon Katoy, we've had Andrew Harris, we've had Jackson Finley, we've had both Philpott brothers, or we had Tyson. We had Clark Barnes last year. We had Theo Benedette. We've had Clark Barnes. I already mentioned Clark Barnes, but we've had a number of Canadian football players, and as I mentioned earlier, kind of wanting to really spotlight those guys, really give them an opportunity to really showcase and share their story of where they came from, what kind of made them into the professional they are today, as well as go check out our film room series that we actually introduced in December, and we actually were able to be lucky enough to be joined by Taylor Algersma. Kind of don't know if I want to call him CFL or NFL quarterback, but pro quarterback Taylor Algersma, who got drafted by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the 2025 CFL draft and was a undrafted free agent to the Green Bay Packers. We were able to sit down with him for about 45 minutes, break down some of his Laurier All-24 film, which was super cool. Get kind of some in-depth knowledge and kind of some tips and tricks and whatnot. And he broke down some film on his own from his words. So it was super cool. We're actually going to be introducing that into the 2026, as I mentioned, but with some CFL guys and hoping to have on maybe tease some our kind of hopefully next guest in line is maybe a Logan Furland of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We're able to bring Logan in. He's actually a CJFL alumni himself, where he played for the Regina Thunder. and have him on and really be able to talk through some offensive line stuff where I feel like is kind of there's really none of it out there in the world, not only in the NFL world, but in the CFL world, especially. So follow us on our social media platforms as well as YouTube, folks, and we're going to be super active here in 2026, as well as you guys can find some clips from Brian and I's shows throughout the year and whatnot. So expect maybe by Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to see some clips from the show here today, and it'll be out on our not only our Canadian Football Fanatics platform, but we're going to send Brian some collaboration invites as well, so you guys will be able to see it on the Lions Den Instagram as well. So be sure to head over there and subscribe and follow.
All right, and with that, we are going to thank all 161 of you that have checked out this soft launch of the podcast. We thank you so much. We're looking forward to it. I'm jacked. My creative juices are flowing again, so really looking forward to getting this going this year.
And Brian, sorry, not to cut you off. Sorry, Brian. I just want to give you a big thank you to yourself for not only accepting me into a role like this, but for doing everything that you've done. I think you were kind of one of the first names that kind of I recognized of, getting, as I mentioned, COVID happened. I kind of got back into the CFL community and kind of wanted to look around. Is there a CFL podcast? 3 Down was one of the first ones. Turf District was the next one. Lions Den was one of them in there as well, where I was working actually some graveyard shifts at Canadian Tire, throwing on some CFL content during the offseason just to consume it and just to kind of familiarize myself with who are the good players now, who are kind of the what are the storylines going on and stuff like that. So you're definitely someone that inspired me to kind of get into the YouTube aspect and to kind of reach out and be accepting of me to get into this co-host role. I'm super excited to see what we're able to build here going forward, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and a shout out to shows like the Turf District,
Flight Deck,
2 and Out, all these guys that have kept going during our hiatus. They came on board after we started our podcast and really took things to another level. So they inspired me. They're part of the reason why I'm back, because I'm watching these shows and saying, man, this looks like a lot of fun, this new format. It's really interactive. I love it. So, thanks to all those shows for keeping going and keeping the candle burning and keeping CFL podcasts in the landscape. But we're going to end it here. Thank you. We're up to 167 people now. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you probably in the middle of January with hopefully a special guest joining us. So thank you all, and have a great New Year's, and may everybody be happy and healthy in 2026. Go Lions.